Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happenstance into this Truth Bomb Riff. My name is Patrick Lovell, and I'm coming at you on Friday, May 31st, 2024, at approximately 11:30 a.m. my time. And I had to take a break yesterday after the jury verdict was read and kind of stay off of social media for a bit, particularly X, because I just wanted to kind of marinate and absorb what had just happened, which I did not expect to the level that it did, and it compelled me to write what I'll offer as my most recent article on X, because these things are being seen in a big way. I've definitely reached over 600,000 views in the last 2 weeks or so, or actually last month, but particularly the last couple of truth bombs, and they're finding an audience. And I'm going to experiment with this today because for those that are new to this is something I've been doing for over 2 years. It's kind of part therapy, part lecture, part sermon in a sense, to try to bring to light all of the information I have in context of what's happening on a daily basis. But we've just kind of hit a monumental situation here with the Trump. What is the terminology? It's when it was. Well, I'll get to it in a minute, but I'm gonna experiment with something because I wrote an article and I'm gonna read from it. I don't have a teleprompter, so this is just me kind of going for it. So please bear with me, but it's gonna be the same print, and then I'll, like always, put a bunch of different links to different things that I've produced that kind of accentuate what all these points are. But hopefully, it's in this groundswell effort to capitalize on, quite frankly, which is potentially lightning in a bottle, or like I like to say, the Big Bang. The Big Bang in all of its glory and light and energy and everything that goes with it. But starting from the top, I'm just going to read through this, and so I apologize that my eyes aren't on you, but just bear with me. Maybe you could just turn off the video and listen to the sound if that's less distracting. But here it goes. I don't know about you, but I had to take a minute to soak in the 34 count verdict laid down by the jury in the unanimous decision in the Trump hush money trial. It was one of those times that you remember for the rest of your life. Moments like where you were during the space shuttle disaster, or 9/11, or for our parents' generation when Kennedy was assassinated. I was in the parking lot of a grocery store yesterday when the verdict came through, and I heard it read over and over and over, guilty. And I honestly could not believe my ears. I was astonished. Maybe in a way I was joyous, but not in a way one would expect from the MSNBC hen crew. And if you've read or seen any of my work, you know that the verdict wasn't what I was hanging my hat on, considering I've always rendered Trump guilty of this case and so much more. But the way I have always looked at Trump, particularly as expressed through the hush money trial, is the ongoing demonstration by both the government and all of media that isn't, of course, Fox or X or some sort of lying delineation that's in the MAGA sort of ecosphere, that the falsification of business records to defraud either the public in an election fraud racketeering scheme, or in its falsification of business documents to both defraud Deutsche Bank and the investors, and also the New York City and state tax authorities, etc., are of course illegal. They're crimes. They always have been, and they're always felonies. I mean, aside from the obvious conclusion that a guy like Trump in any universe on any day of my life until now would be unfit to serve as president of the United States. But as I know, millions of you are thinking, like I am, that's how far we have fallen as a country. Our country is a rotted, bloated, dead whale carcass washed up on the beach where only parasites feeding on it are thriving. The whole thing made possible by the monstrous nuclear atomic fraud and corruption that I continue to reveal while wrestling with the ocean of madness and lies that have gripped most of our minds. It's not the woke mind virus that's in control. It's the MAGA hive zombie apocalypse that has overrun millions of people's minds, whose lives have been train wrecked by a system that they don't recognize or understand. They just know it's in turmoil because of what they're living. In their desperation, they have latched on to the embodiment of the disease that has turned media, politics, and the corrupt side of the judiciary that has been undermined by billionaires getting a free lunch from sucking the blood out of the American people through the Federal Reserve and its criminal conspiracy, and all of it has betrayed a government of, by, and for the people. And yet, for the first time in a long time, we the people stepped up to the occasion and hit a grand slam unanimous decision that Don the Con Chumpstein is guilty on all counts. Let that sink in for a minute. 12 jurors of Americans, 7 male, 5 female, from different walks of life, heard the evidence in Judge Mershon's directions over the course of 6 weeks amidst the turmoil in the courthouse and outside on the streets that surrounded the sloppy seconds Republicans in support of this absolute disastrous loser rendered what the millions of us knew, but whose voice has been silenced by the corruption and manipulation by both media and the pimps, whores, and junkies and parasites they all serve in our government. In this one brief moment in time, it was as if the American people that rendered an absolute 10-ton megaton boom that is the only possible way our country walks back from the brink of catastrophe to once again rewrite the ship that we all depend upon. Now let's keep it in perspective. For the moment, from the moment of the decision and throughout last night and into today and many more months ahead, the immediate reaction from Trump and the Republicans and Elon Musk and the zombie apocalypse and all the usual suspects are crying foul, and that this was rigged, and it was the ultimate miscarriage of justice for a case that we all saw was airtight. Trump's accountant's notes were on the signed checks in exhibits 35 and 36 alongside Cohen's testimony of the cover-up, in which the law is written that gives us the motive and the evidence that was used by Trump and his apparatus to defraud the American people, which is exactly what these assholes do all day, every day. In fact, Trump's on the campaign trail right now, sucking money out of the suckers that are all in, and yeah, that's our reality. And yet this is exactly what I continue to reveal to you, because this Trump trial really was child's play. Seriously, we are the greatest experiment in human history that has achieved more greatness in our short time as a country than the world combined. But we've been reduced to a garbage of smut and porn and philandering, treachery, and fraud. And so in this situation that I'm revealing to you, only in this situation, I am revealing to you how tens of millions of felonies were carried out in a global fraud binge that began with deceptive acts and practices of mortgage brokers in every stage of the pipeline, from underwriters to appraisers to credit rating agencies to CDO managers and CDS managers, that morphed a $4.5 trillion housing market contagion, fraud, I should say, into an $800 trillion global contagion that blew up the world, that destroyed tens of millions of Americans, that led to tens of trillions of dollars looted through the Federal Reserve illegally to the criminal syndicate that constitutes our financial system, that led to tens of millions of illegal docs to be fraudulently used illegally by judges around the country, because the free money we plowed into this ginormous fraud pipeline wound up buying our courts. And now many of you are seeing it because of Judge Eileen Cannon and, of course, the Supreme Court. Everything I just mentioned was back in 2009. Is it relevant? Is it relevant that Stormy Daniels effectively had an affair with Donald Trump in 2006-07 that was ultimately covered up in this scheme that led to this information being catched and killed by the National Enquirer prior to the 2016 election? For tens of millions of you celebrating today, of course it's relevant. In fact, the statute of limitations on fraud is never ending, from what I understand. We've illegally plowed over $71 trillion into the hands of the few, led by the likes of these billionaire hedge funds and private equity ass clowns that are now pledging their support to Don the Con, even after he has been tried and convicted by a jury of his peers on 34 felony counts to defraud the American people. I call that financial terrorism. We've illegally, and this is just the small stuff compared to the jammed up RICO trial in Georgia and Jack Smith's joke of a wrestling match with corrupt Judge Eileen Cannon that can't bring a case of actually selling secrets to enemies, in addition to the corrupt Supreme Court led by Judge Clarence Thomas, whose wife Ginny Thomas was in the bowels of the insurrection, while of course Judge Alito signaled his upside down flag to MAGAs that he was one of them. Yeah, corruption births and fuels fascism. And Jesus, people, we need to act and think like the Manhattan jury did in yesterday's verdicts. Corruption births and fuels fascism. And if we, the people, do not take the power back, for us to take the power back, millions of you have to wrap your brains and hearts around the ultimate truth that I am giving you for free, because the American people have generally been sold a bag of goods, and all most of us buy are lies. To understand who did what, when and how, why it was illegal, what actually happened, and what we have to do to rectify this American tragedy. Once I get millions of you there, my clarion call, my muster, my bugle call to charge millions of you to join me in DC before the election to surround our corrupt Supreme Court, our corrupt Congress, and our corrupt Department of Justice in a way that is not January 6th like. It will all be by the book. It will be, the people assembling peaceably to air our grievances, but to gather at the National Mall, where I will unload all of these facts in a monumental way, to where if millions of us can congregate and come together, this system of obfuscation that continues to hide this monumental revelation from the American people while demonstrating that Trump is guilty of all of the same elements, this is the only way we can overwhelm this ocean of madness and lies with the truth that is ultimately our salvation at a time when we're at an intersection of, what could be a monumental tragedy and consequence of history. My name is Patrick Lovell. I have the $71 trillion truth that can upend all of this madness if millions of you unite with me to forge our path to the clean New Deal. Join me to crush the corruption that has been so dastardly corrosive to the American experiment, and that has been crushing us for now over a decade. And in doing so, we can also fire hose the fascism and the MAGA zombie apocalypse that it's fueled. There is nothing more American, save the jury verdict yesterday, that proves that we, the people, are still alive. This is the most important potential transformation to the American experiment since our revolution, since the Civil War to break the bonds of slavery, since the populist movements of the trust-busting era, through the Clean New Deal that involved women's suffrage, civil rights, and of course, labor rights and agriculture rights, or the farmers' rights at that time, which is all part of the American experiment in order to form a more perfect union, let alone our defeat of fascism. This is one of those moments. The war has always been between the forces of darkness and light. This is the universal truth. I know what side I'm on. The Clean New Deal can and will redeem the dream if you, the jury of the American people, render your verdict. If you, me, and everyone you see that isn't a Nazi, that believes in decency and dignity and the integrity of law and possibility and beauty and sustainability, if we come out of our silos and unite, we will usher in the Clean New Deal, and that is our destiny. Unite with me to purge the misery of tyranny, to unleash the renaissance of possibility. Failure is not an option. Rise, roar, revolt. It's not rocket science, it's racketeering. When you have the truth, you're bulletproof. This is the righteous grind. Redeem the dream, the clean new deal. Onwards and upwards.